In this video I'm going to show how you can make vases and other curved round objects without a lathe. And I'm not sure how useful this will be to other people, but I use this a lot. So to start, I cut off a couple of shorter, more usable pieces I could use to make this vase. And then I can take those smaller sections over to the table saw, and I'm going to cut them into thin strips that I can bend. And since this is pine, it bends pretty easily, so the strips don't need to be that thin. I cut the strips to about 1/8 of an inch wide. But if you're doing like a harder wood, you'd probably want to cut the strips thinner. Now that I have all these strips cut, I'm going to make a sort of mold for them. So I'm using a piece of 2x4 or scrap or whatever I have on hand, and I'm going to cut a design into it. And this is a pretty simple design, but you could do a lot of different things. Next, I'm going to glue those strips I cut earlier back together in groups of 3, and I'm going to clamp the strips in my mold while the glue dries. I ended up making a couple of these molds since I'll probably use them again, and that way I can just glue up all my strips at once. I let the glue dry overnight before taking off the clamps, and now that I have all my bent pieces, I took those over to the table saw, and all these pieces need to have a bevel and a curve cut in them. And so I set my table saw to 22.5 degrees since I have 16 of these pieces. Also, I'm using this piece of scrap wood so that the bent pieces have a longer flat surface to ride on. I think this next part just looks kind of cool. You can see that since the pieces are bent, that the table saw, it's cutting the bevel, but it's also cutting a curve on each of the pieces. And now all that's left to do is glue the pieces together. And this was kind of difficult. I couldn't really think of a great way to clamp these together. So I'm actually using a nail gun while the glue dries. And this is kind of hard because like you have to be pretty accurate so that the nail doesn't pop out the sides. And with all the pieces glued together, I just had to clean it up a little bit, so I'm cutting the top and bottom flat, and then I'm going to sand the edges where the pieces meet to make the vase more round. I also obviously made a top and bottom for this vase, but that's not very interesting, so I didn't really show it. But anyways, I finished the whole thing with some polyurethane. Not to make this video sad, but I made this vase to hold my dog's ashes. His name was Brownie, and he died late this winter, and we had him cremated. They gave him back to us in this little tin, so I thought I'd make him something a little bit nicer. Anyways, this is my senior year this year, and every year since I was probably 4, me and my brothers and Brownie would take a picture together on the first day of school. And Brownie obviously didn't quite make it for the last first day picture, but this way you can still be a part of it.